Wow, we finally got it together. Live from Coconut Grove, it's Gloves Off with David Singer. Thank you very much for joining us. Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I'll call you back.
That's certainly not good. I guess I need to turn my phone off like I tell my guests. The opinions of Sadine, why don't you read the disclaimer?
Absolutely. So the opinions of the host, guests, any callers, and anyone who comments are not representative of the opinion of Mr. Singer's employer or anyone associated with Gloves Off.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So that way I don't get in trouble or I don't get anybody else in trouble. Anyway, hello and good afternoon. And thank you for tuning in to Gloves Off live. We're broadcasting on both YouTube and Facebook live. If you want to call in during our conversations, it's 786-584-7665. That's 786-584-7665. If you want to make any comments or have any questions, you're more than welcome to email us. I'm not exactly sure how do you do that. I think you do that through Facebook to email us and we'll answer your conversations. We have a special guest today that will be here in about 5 minutes. But before we bring him on board, we want to talk about a massive email I sent out to 40 to 50,000 residents of South Florida in regards to Steve Cody. I want to pop up his video. This video made national news when they were talking
the night, and they hire another guy, Miguel de Grande, who's a very powerful lobbyist, of course, who gets hired as the new redistricting expert for a price of about $100,000. He's with a very prominent and powerful law firm in Miami called Holland and Knight. And the entire law firm, in order for him to get this gig, needed to receive an exemption from the city of Miami because all their lawyers lobby the city. So this guy is drawing redistricting maps while all of the other lawyers are lobbying the city. Of course, the commissioners granted that. What this guy then goes and does is he hires a guy named Steve Cody, no relation. Steve, this is C-O-D-Y, Steve Cody.
A different compromised person.
It's somehow worse. And he is a suspended lawyer. He's no longer a member of the bar, effectively disbarred since 2013 after he was arrested for writing bad checks and defrauding his clients. He's living in a foreclosed house down in Southwest Miami-Dade, and he's being paid $50,000 by the city to consult on this redistricting operation. And what's probably happening is because Miguel de Grande is a real lawyer and a powerful one at that, he's not going to compromise probably his ethics and integrity. So they had this disbarred attorney who's probably fielding calls from all the commissioners saying, this is what we want you to do and this is how we want you to do it. So not only are they poaching Coconut Grove, which will dilute the power and the voice of that community.
Anyway, so that's a really interesting conversation they were having because as of I guess 2 days ago, and I guess we can throw up the a picture of it. The redistricting was approved by the mayor, city of Miami mayor. Basically, what they did was they're trying to take away the influence of the African American community in Coconut Grove. By what they're doing with the redistricting. Anyway, so that's really important to know that they're trying to dilute the vote in Coconut Grove which literally will take away some of the influence that the Black community, African American community have in the city of Miami, which Steve Cody holds himself out to be a huge liberal, but I guess it's not. That does not come into play when you're handed $50,000 to redistrict the community. The second part of that, which is really, really important, is they were talking about his foreclosed home. His house has been in foreclosure or maybe not foreclosure, but he has not paid any mortgage on his house for the last 8 years. Or real estate taxes or insurance. So basically the bank is picking up all his living expenses to live in Village of Palmetto Bay, where he basically sat there last year and raised taxes on all the residents who were paying their taxes. He didn't have to worry about paying more taxes because he doesn't pay taxes. As a matter of fact, he owes the IRS a rather large sum of money. I have a folder on Steve Cody, if anybody, a binder on Steve Cody, if anybody wants to look at his history. Third thing that's important is after I put this information out, Steve Cody sent me, by the way, let's put up the court order. We have the court order from the judge that basically says, your time has come. We will not reconsider your efforts to stay in your house since you have not paid your mortgage or real estate taxes or anything in 8 years. So he will not be in his house much longer. I would assume that his house is going to be put up for auction in the next couple months, and he will have to move out of his house. Whether he's not allowed to serve, if he moves out of District 2 in Palmetto Bay, he'll be asked to step down. And I guess the village mayor, who actually Steve Cody is one of her good friends, she'll have to reseat somebody else to represent District 2. And I can tell you, it won't be me. Number 3 is he sent an email, which is actually really, really, really disgusting as far as I'm concerned, kind of slamming children of Holocaust survivors. If anybody doesn't know, and I've talked about this numerous times, my dad's a Holocaust survivor, or was a Holocaust survivor. He's since passed away. He was in an orphanage of about 500 children, and only 2 children actually lived. He was one of the 2. We were brought up with some horrific stories about the Holocaust and what his family went through when we were kids. My grandfather basically had to dig his own grave, and the Nazis shot him and killed him. And it's sort of like what's going on in Ukraine right now. So that's another issue, Ukraine, I'd like to get into. I think it's disgusting. So for him to make light of the Holocaust by sending, and that's not the first email he sent about the Holocaust, by the way, is absolutely disgusting to me. And it absolutely amazes me that Karen Cunningham hasn't come out and said something, Mayor Karen Cunningham come out and said something in regards to you shouldn't be downgrading Holocaust survivors or Holocaust survivors' children. It's very anti-Semitic, and it's just disgusting. And people should take notice of the fact that he very easily went into a Holocaust, like nasty comments about Holocaust and Holocaust survivors and Holocaust survivors' kids. So this is the kind of person that we have in District 2, serving District 2 in Palmetto Bay. He's not a good guy. He's apparently not a liberal when it comes to accepting money. And he doesn't like, he's been living off the system for 8 years. So this is what Karen Cunningham brought to the village of Palmetto Bay. This is why we have to get Karen Cunningham out of office, because she doesn't care who it is that serves on the council, as long as it's a yes vote for her agenda. She does not appreciate any opposing viewpoints to hers, which does not make a good leader, and it certainly does not make a good politician. So with that said, we're done with Steve Cody for right now. I have more on him. Like I said, I have a binder that's about this thick on some of the problems he's had and the trouble he's gotten into. I'm more than happy to share it with everybody or anybody if they want it. Oh, look who just showed up. Oh, look, I have comments on Facebook. Can I pull up the comments real quick? But Ed Silva just showed up, and I'm sure he's going to come, and we're going to talk about zoning. Are there any comments from people watching?
So Kevin Jackson says,
okay,
let's see. Cody had so-called liberal feelings in left hand and $50K in his right hand. In one hand, he has $50,000. Obviously, he goes for the money over any feelings he may have.
Oh, yeah. Cody can be, I would assume that by what he's done would prove that Cody can be bought for $50,000. I personally couldn't be bought for $50,000, but I guess it's a different issue with Cody when he doesn't have any money and his house is in foreclosure. So we're going to change subjects completely because Ed Silva is here. We're going to discuss zoning. We're going to discuss, yeah, sure. and we're going to discuss zoning. We're going to discuss mass transit in Dade County, and I'm sure we're going to get into a couple of other conversations. Here he comes. It's going to be tough. Oh, by the way, this is my view is beautiful, as I said. Oh, there he is. How you doing?
Good, David. How are you?
Good. By the way, one last comment. Cover your ears. I'm very surprised that Grant Miller, who happens to be Jewish, has a friend that seems to be a very anti-Semitic, as Steve Cody is. But that's my one comment. How to get that in there? as shakes his head. So I saw Ed last night.
You did?
And it was a wonderful event.
Thank you.
Lots of people there, more than I've ever seen before at a fundraiser.
About 45.
About 45. You raised quite a significant amount of money. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, it was a fundraiser for Commissioner Danielle Cohen-Higgins. We had around 45.
She's running for
County Commissioners, District 8,
Mhm.
representing Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, and kind of meanders all the way down through the Redlands and portions of Homestead. In my opinion, she's a lady of integrity, a lady of convictions, and what she says she's going to do, she follows through. That's a leader, and she's absolutely a leader. You know, I was very pleasantly surprised, and one of the residents there said it yesterday that we had an incredible cross section of different points of view there yesterday.
and everybody was impressed with her, by the way. She's very, very impressed. She's very, very impressed. She told me yesterday that she'd be on my show as soon as she won the election, which is pretty impressive.
Well, we also even had former Vice Mayor John Dubois come by and have a little conversation, and I was glad to see him. It was good to catch up with a lot of people. We had our former village attorney Dexter Layton in there, and we had quite a few elected officials.
That's
there
right.
as
Yeah,
well.
Tim.
Well, I wasn't going to mention any names.
Oh, I was going to say Tim Murbot from Cutler Bay. Yeah, why not? Whatever. And Gene Flynn was there from Palmetto Bay.
Unfortunately, you were there.
And I was there, unfortunately, moving your furniture around. But that's for another day.
We know, we saw it.
So
we caught it.
So yeah, it was a great event. We raised you raised a lot of money for her. She was extremely, extremely impressive. Everybody who left knew exactly who they were going to vote for.
And they know exactly where she stands.
And they know exactly where she stands. No nonsense. She's an attorney. She tells the truth, which is very, very nice in this day and age for a politician.
That's true, and it's unfortunate. Some of the people have already started with a negativity campaign and started to talk, and
oh, you mean Stacy?
And have started and has Jesus, David. We had this conversation. I came here to talk about a commission and about a job,
Okay.
and I said I would sit in here for a little while as long as there's certain things we would talk about. So let's leave it at that.
Okay.
But it's a shame. It's a shame to see some of the negativity that happens in our community. It's a shame that people just can't understand that we all need to get along, and we all need to try to improve our community. And that just doesn't happen in Palmetto. It just doesn't happen in Palmetto Bay. I don't know. I don't get it, but it is what it is.
Let's stop about Palmetto Bay. Let's talk about zoning. Pinecrest is coming up with new zoning. Palmetto Bay has gone through 3 now revisions on their zoning. And this was based on Miami-Dade County changing their zoning along the what was supposed to be the Metro Rail line, which is the bus line.
If you do it that way, there's been 4 revisions to the zoning code
In Palmetto Bay?
Yep.
Okay, so 4 revisions for how long? How many years?
Well, 3 of them have happened in the last
2 years.
3 years, maybe.
3 years, correct.
And then there was one major revision that would happen in 2007, 9, somewhere.
Was that
in there.
when Gene was?
Yeah, that was what was called the Franjo Triangle in Island District.
And Pinecrest is have they passed it, or are they just still talking about it?
They're still talking about it. And I knew this even way back when, that they were going to be looking at this. They were going to be trying to create nodes of nodes for of density based on the transit stations. They're trying to get ahead of what the county's doing with the RTC, which is the rapid transit zone proposal, which hasn't been written yet, contrary to what everybody says. And in fact, last night, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins eloquently said it, that she fully expects that when this ordinance is written, most of the municipalities, provided that they do the right things, will have full control of their zoning rights. In
Okay,
the
but
municipality.
typically, okay, but that's only on one side.
That's only on one side of the
Okay,
bus.
so explain to everybody about Dade County's right to zoning in each municipality.
Oh, I'm not a lawyer, but I do.
Okay.
But I do. I really am not.
Yeah.
I that's really.
But they have the home, the
they
home
have
chart.
they have home charter. They have.
Okay,
they
which
have,
is what?
They actually pretty much, they're like the state. They can do what they want to. They actually, even some of the state requirements that they can do their home charter.
And the only city that I know that they can't supersede is Carl Gables, right? Carl Gables, maybe City of Miami.
See, I thought it was City of Miami, but
Yeah, the Carl Gables.
but
came.
but
Yeah.
but the county's rapid transit zone. Look, we can't shut the doors to Dade County. People are going to continue to move into Dade County. They need to find a place to live. The whole philosophy behind the RTC is simple. Let's put the new residents and let's put everybody along our transit corridors so that we don't continue to stress and overstress our grid of roads.
Yeah,
and
but the
so
transit corridors don't work as they are now.
Well, the RTC, the way it's written, is once you get to a threshold of boardings, it will turn into a rail system.
It's a BRT though.
It's a BRT right now, but
Yeah.
once you get to a certain criteria, which I believe is 30,000 boardings, they will automatically start the process to turn it over to rail. So that's the whole philosophy behind it. I think what the county's trying to do is make sure that people like the Village of Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Color Bay, not so much because Color Bay's already got the zoning in place for it. Understand that they have to allow for some expansion. Now, some places like Palmetto Bay are playing games where there's two overriding documents for any zoning code. It's the zoning itself or the land.
Okay, let's simplify this for people who watch. Okay, because you're an architect and been doing this, and the former village manager. So you talk I always tell everybody, you talk up here and everybody's listening down here and they don't understand. Okay, so Dade County came out with zoning along the transit, and the transit is from Homestead to wherever, I guess up north, right? Wherever the Metro Rail runs, wherever the BRT runs, wherever
the 6 corridors.
Where the 6 corridors, they have 6 corridors, 6 fingers. Okay. And they came out and said, look, we want to build certain apartments, condos, or whatever that can reach X height, okay, along these corridors, so people don't have to get on US 1, they don't have to get on the turnpike, blah, 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 to get to their work and to get shopping or whatever. Okay. So what are they calling for right now? Dade County.
Well, Dade County right now is allowing up to 125 units to an acre in certain areas. So that's 5 times what, as an example, Palmetto Bay allows for right now. And the heights are up to 20 stories.
Okay. And how far off? I heard it was a half a mile. Somebody said a half a mile. Somebody else said it was a mile by where the actual transit stops are.
Again, that document hasn't been completed and it hasn't been finished. And it's not those heights and that density for a half a mile out. It tapers down.
Okay.
It tapers down because that, the further you get away from a transit line, the less likely you are that you're going to be taking whatever that transit is.
But it is, from what I understand, a half a mile. So you take
up to a half a mile, but at a substantially lower height when you get out to that half mile.
Okay, so there's a comment on Facebook if you can put it up, please. But okay, so a half a mile. What's that say?
Comment says, ha ha ha, the county will not keep any such promise. It will simply say the BRT is successful. No need to move rail. No need to move to rail. If the ridership reaches 50,000.
It's not 50,000. It's 30,000.
It's 30,000.
30,000.
It's written that way. That's the whole. Yeah, that's the whole issue. I would love to be able to see when the RTZ comes out that there are some guarantees, dead fast guarantees in there. That they
Like they
will.
guarantee
I
us
know.
that they were going to use the half-cent sales tax.
I understand that. That's the trust issue that the county has right now.
Oh, that's any politician. They all say one thing and they do another. Okay, so let's go back to this. Thank you for your email. If you want to send any other
Listen,
ones, just
and
send
then let's take that a step further. I mean, I am a practicing architect. I am doing work all over the state of Florida right now, actually. But there are certain areas like the Redlands that are under attack right now. That area is changing right before our eyes, and that's our agricultural area.
Well, but at one time it was you couldn't build anything. Going back a couple of years, you couldn't build on anything less than 5 acres, and then I think they dropped it down to 1 acre now.
They dropped it down to 1 acre. There's some areas in there that they're dropping them. They're going and changing them and dropping them even less. And
Roberts is here. They're putting huge
and Roberts
right across the street.
Is pretty far out west.
Yeah, it's not as far out west as I thought it was because whatever. Anyway, so I stop everybody. If you've never been to Roberts, go to Roberts. They have the best shakes there. And they have a petting zoo for kids and everything. It's pretty impressive.
My grandkids kind of like that place.
I kind of like it too, except for the bathrooms are terrible. Anyway, so we were talking about so half a mile off the busway that runs parallel with US 1. Okay.
In South Data would be from Dayland Station south all the way through
Homestead, which has been a complete failure up until now. People don't want to get on it because it takes, from people I've talked to, it takes 2 hours to get from Homestead to downtown Miami, because you have to get off the bus, then you got to get on the Metro rail, then you got to go from the Metro rail, you got to get on the other rail that they have in downtown. Too many transfers.
That's the other issue that Dade County has, is that they're kind of in love with technology, and they have all of these kinds of different modes of transportation. As an example, they're now trying to bring a monorail from Genting's future casino site, which is at the old Miami Herald site, to Miami Beach. Now it makes sense for Miami Beach because they get the casino off of Miami Beach and dump it in City of Miami's lap when it happens. And they get a nice modern slick monorail. But for the typical commuter, that means if you're going anywhere, you would have to get on a bus, get on a monorail, get on a people mover, get on the Metro rail.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I'd rather sit in my car.
Get on a BRT. So
and get on a bicycle.
That's 5 transfers right there. And the time that you lose in those transfers.
It's funny because I had Alex Pinellas on the show. And he was the one that basically backed the 1 cent sales tax, and he said it's basically fraud. I am paraphrasing what Alex said because I don't want to get Alex in trouble or anything. It's basically fraud what Miami-Dade County did with that money. I mean, it is kind of nuts. Okay, but we can't go backwards.
I know,
right?
They sold it as yes, that they would be bringing rail all over the place, and even he admits that he knew that wasn't enough money.
Yeah,
but that he thought it would. And fair, in all fairness, that's the way it works. I mean, when I was, which seems like decades ago now to me, and I'm very glad I'm no longer the manager. We went to California and we looked at them, and the reason why California has been able to really improve their transit network is because they keep their promises. For them to approve any tax increase, it takes 2/3 of a vote. It takes 67% of the people to vote.
Yeah.
And they learned early on when they went in to try to get an increase to do more rail, they hadn't really kept their promises to what and it's the only time they've ever had it voted down. Since then, they learned we better keep our word. We better do what we tell our residents we're going to do, because if not, we're not going to be able to continue to expand. And they just announced today they're doing another expansion in their rail system.
Yeah, they got a lot more problems than transportation in California right now.
I understand,
Yeah,
but I'm just.
But I mean, no. But they're dealing with that, and Washington D.C. has done it. Everybody's done it,
But this goes.
basically, except for
It goes.
Miami-Dade
It
County.
goes to the point that you need to be able to keep your trust with your general public.
correct.
And you have to keep your word on what you're going to do, or you're going to get comments like what we just do right now, that they're going to say, and by the way, a BRT system, after you pass 30,000 boardings a day,
Yeah.
it fails. It's overused. You
Okay.
can't do it.
So everybody knows what they're planning, right? I didn't agree with the BRT. We sat in some sort of seminar or some, not seminar, but what was it, a citizens group or something. Yep. for weeks and weeks and weeks, going through whether it was going to be rail, whether it was going to be BRT. I get it. We don't have the money for the rail. And the rail will take too long. I get that. I know. I mean, the projections to build a rail down there,
And yet they're spending $1 billion in building a monorail, aren't they?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
they know where they know where their bread is buttered, and it's tourism. I mean, literally, it's tourism in this town. So
but who needs transit the most?
Oh no, the working day.
Thank you.
Person,
Yep.
blue collar person needs it.
Yep.
Or white collar or whoever, they absolutely need it, and they're the ones that pay the taxes. So yes, and what's happening we saw the population increase, on Kendall Drive. We saw a population increase on Sunset Drive, and now it's coming to Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Homestead.
Well,
I mean, we can't. You're not going to be able to stop that.
And closer to home, we had a chance to try to. You're not going to be able to stop it, but you can at least control some of the densities, and you can at least take some of the controls away from the county. We had a chance, and I'll give you credit. I'll give former Mayor Flynn credit. I'll give former Councilwoman
Larissa.
Thank you, Larissa.
Oh, there you go. She's going to hate that.
Larissa Siegel, Laura. It's been a while. Credit. You all listened, and you all were looking at trying to do an annexation of the lands on US 1 southbound between US 1 and the Transitway, so that we can control our own destiny on what would be built there. We don't have that, so it doesn't really matter what we do.
Dade County's going to control that.
Dade County is controlling that area, and yet.
Okay, so let's discuss.
This
let's
council
discuss
voted
that.
it down again.
Everybody understands. Okay, that Dade County now wants to build how many units?
Dade County doesn't want to build. Dade County's philosophy is that they want to put the
density,
the growth
That's
along the transit line. So they want to allow for that growth to happen responsibly where it should, and not away from transit.
And if you want to see what that growth looks like, all you got to do is drive on US 1 between Ponce and Lejeune and look at that apartment building. It overtowers US 1. It's too big. Okay. It's too big to be there.
Who owned that land before?
Yeah. So anyway, that's not the issue. So the issue is, if you want to see what the potential is, okay, literally up and down US 1 corridor, you can just look at that building, and it's too big, and it's too big. It's too many people.
They're doing on 27th Avenue right now with another developer in town, that they're building a.
Oh yeah. But at least that's at the Metro Rail station.
It's
sitting there at the Metro Rail station, which that's okay, because most of the people will use the Metro Rail. Okay. The people that are other places, okay, aren't going to have that luxury of going down in an elevator and jumping on a Metro Rail and going wherever. So, and they're also they're building in services there. I think they're putting in a Publix there. So, you just go downstairs and you walk and you go to a Publix and stuff like that. So that little pod I can actually see. So let's get to what I wanted to originally talk to you about it before I kind of wanted to explain the history of what's going on. Is Pinecrest is being proactive and trying to find some middle ground. And I will have Joe Cordino on the show, hopefully in the next month, so we can talk about what he's trying to do. Pinecrest is trying to find a middle ground to sit there and not have it to the point where what Miami-Dade County would think is best, okay, but have it something that they can actually live with. And they haven't found what they think they can live with yet, but they're going through a lot of conversations.
At least they're trying,
At least they're trying.
Yeah.
And I think they were going to have.
And in the open, by the way.
Yeah, and in the open. Okay, instead of doing it in back room, which I'll leave my comment alone for that. So anyway, so I understand that they're going through, and they're having a charrette. I think they were going to have a charrette to bring in people to have discussions and stuff. And Pinecrest residents, a lot of them are really pissed. But I don't think what they realize is either the people that run Pinecrest either work and try to find an alternative, or or what's going to happen in Pinecrest is going to get shoved down your throat.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a little bit more context, and maybe it needs to be modified because I'm going to
dumb down.
And I'm going to
For
give
me,
architectural terms. One of the biggest developers here said single-family home sites are going to be done with in 2 years. There won't be any more single-family home residential sites.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go vertical. It's just bottom line, or you're putting pressure on the urban design boundary, and you're going to go and exceed, and that's horrible because if you keep pushing that,
they are moving at Homestead,
and if you keep pushing that line out, all you're doing is creating more traffic and more traffic and more.
And there's
traffic.
no infrastructure to support.
And there's no infrastructure to support it. So you've got a problem with everybody, that the influx of all the residents are trying to move down here, but nowhere to put them. So then the question is, what do you do? And the question is, you have to put them. You need to try to put them along the transit lines. That's the only viable solution you really, really, truly have.
Okay, and being a developer or working for a developer, I can tell you,
dark money.
I can tell you right off the top of my head that if I had a mall, say Sunnyland, somebody's calling me. Let's see who this is. Should we call? Nah, let's not. If you're calling me, just text me and tell me what you're calling about, because I'm still using my phone. I still haven't figured out how to figure out if it's a call for the show or a call from one of Steve Cody's bill collectors. Anyway, so you could take down a Sunnyland, right? Sunnyland Shopping Center. We all know where Sunnyland Shopping Center is. I think whatever's there. There was a Best Buy and other and put up a whole bunch of residential units, and you'd make a ton of money. You'd make more money, putting up residential condos or apartments there than you would a shopping center. And it's probably and with what Dade County's trying to pass, literally that's a half a mile off the rail. It's right across US 1.
Yeah, but that's not a half a mile, dude.
I said it's within that half a mile.
Within the half mile.
It's within that half a mile. So you could tear down a perfectly fine shopping center, put up residential, make a lot more money.
Well, and it won't be just residential. Whatever they'll do is residential with some commercial on the bottom that'll serve that.
But it's going to bring a whole bunch more traffic into.
That's a heck of a lot better than having X amount of units in a future Publix on Old Color Road.
I know,
right?
but we'll get into that. You don't want to talk about Palmetto Bay. Or the lawsuits.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna tackle the lawsuits that are facing Palmetto Bay next week.
The bottom line is kudos to Pinecrest. They're trying to do the right thing.
They're trying to do the right thing.
That conversation.
Correct.
And engage the county in the right way.
Correct.
Instead of being, they're trying to be proactive
instead of
reactive. Which some other communities are being extremely reactive, and the answer you get from them is just no. That's not an answer. That there has to be compromise. You want to try to preserve a quality of life, but be real about
Correct. Right. So let's move up and talk about Palmetto Bay now. And
I'd rather
their
skip
zoning.
Palmetto Bay. Can we go south?
Let's talk about their zoning.
Okay.
Oh wait, let's not talk about their zoning. Let's talk about what they tried to pass, or what somebody thought about, because they wanted to control their destiny too, and it didn't go.
About the annexation.
Yeah, annexation.
Yeah, well, we tried to do it because I saw it coming back in 2015, 2016. We tried to do it. It failed. It failed at the polls by a couple hundred votes, less than some other people have failed by. Your election.
I'm 400.
Okay. This fell by a couple hundred. Kudos to Commissioner Patrick Fiore, who brought it back and for a discussion. It seemingly looked like it was going to be able to have a second bite of the apple, but it failed 3-1. And they had some former council members come out and speak up against it, And I understand it. I mean, those former council people own a shopping center over there, and this means if they were to become part of Palmetto Bay, higher taxes, higher franchise fees, and less density, because eventually we would have lowered the densities on them. So I understand talking with your pocketbook, but it's a shame, because it was a chance to be able to
Control your future.
control the future that we just let slip
Okay,
out
and
of our
that
hands
and that
again.
and that's the problem. So you're looking at Pinecrest, who is really trying to grab the tiger by the tail to control that tiger, and you're looking at Palmetto Bay, who's saying, I'm not going to grab the tail, the tiger. Whatever happens, happens.
And by
We'll
the
do-"
way, now and that's about as far as I want to go on that.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, you look at Color Bay. Color Bay's Southland Mall, as you well know, has sold.
Correct.
And what's coming there is up to their zoning is in place without having to go through public hearings, that they can build 8, 9, 10,000 units there, and that traffic will directly impact everybody north. But they will get the
Yeah.
benefit of that tax rate, won't they?
Correct. They'll have more taxes
Yeah.
and reduce the taxes
Yep.
instead of Palmetto Bay
and by the
increasing
way,
the taxes.
Kudos to Color Bay. They have vision. They really do have vision.
Oh, they have.
They passed.
Tim has done a great job.
They passed a $37 million bond to build them a community
Mm-hmm.
center, a village hall, and a central park. That'll be the hub of that community forever and ever and ever. And on top of that, they're preserving lands.
Oh no, they're buying land to keep them green.
They really have their act
Yeah.
together. That's really a well-oiled run machine right now.
Okay, so are they? Do you know if they are? Because I know you have friends over there, or acquaintances at least. Are they looking at doing any kind of rezoning?
In terms of
In
no,
terms-
they already
across
they already have in place more than what's needed to support any kind of rail system. They don't. I don't think they're contemplating on doing anything. They're fine. They're sitting.
Mhm.
They're sitting fine. They actually basically are. They're against the RTC because they already exceed what the RTC is going to require.
Why do you call it RTC? Is to me
the
was a
rapid-
federal. Yeah, I
the
know. but
rapid tram? I'm
B-
sorry,
BRT. I used to work for the
and
RTC.
that's the rapid transit zone, which is the
Yeah.
zoning designation for the BRT.
BRT. No, I always use RTC for the government. When
I
we
know.
took over all the banks in the
Ah,
80s, because
yeah,
I
yeah.
worked for the government back then, or I worked for a company that worked for the government back then. So anytime anybody says RTC, that's what comes immediately to my brain.
Oh,
Considering
rapid
I was
transit-
working
rapid
24 hours a
transit zone.
day. Yeah.
I used to hate it when they used all those.
Acronyms.
Yeah.
Whatever. Everybody uses acronyms now. LOL.
So Color Bay's doing the right thing.
Which, by the way, if Cutler Bay, okay, and you're gonna hate this, but if Cutler Bay does end up redeveloping Southland Mall, which used to be called
It's not
if
it's
when and Cutler Bay Mall, I used to call it Cutler Bay Mall when I was
That's
a
right.
kid.
That's what I was.
Yeah. You're gonna need more bridges in Palmetto Bay.
Anyway, so
Why are you rolling your eyes? You're going to have to, if there's all this density, okay, up and down US 1, okay, people need to get to work.
do you have to have an open grid system so that you can be able to easily travel from one side to another? You do.
Correct.
But you also need, but see,
Unless you can beam me up, Scotty, how are you going to get these people to work?
Oh, you never know. I mean, there are cars that are going to be.
Okay, whatever.
flying
Anyway,
cars.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you take Southland Mall.
My issue is I'm going to
Yeah.
go back to that comment that your producer read a little while ago.
Mhm.
My issue is a one of trust. I would like to have an assurance or a trust factor with the county that if we get to X point,
Yeah.
they'll start the process, because the way it's written right now, you need to get to that minimum threshold of 30 or 35,000 boardings a day before they even start the process. So, and that process to go through the federal funding process
Mhm.
is a 3 to 5 year process. So what you're
should start now.
what you're basically telling the residents is, when you have enough density to support the rail,
Yeah. It's going to be 5 years from
you're
now.
screwed, because it's
Yeah.
going to take you 3 to 5 years
Years.
before you
And
get
then
any
then the rail guys.
that should be looked at. Those thresholds should be lowered, and they should be able to project when that's going to hit and start the process then. That means that we need to have our
Let me ask you.
Council commissioners, the county commissioners,
Yeah.
relook at that.
Well, okay, so that's great, okay, but it only work. The problem is that you get the county commissioners today to agree to it, the ones that are sitting up there right now, and in 10 years you're gonna have a whole new group of people because of term limits, okay, and they could turn around and say, that's what we said 10 years ago, but we're really not into it today.
Yeah.
Okay, so promises are only good.
And we're going back
Well,
to
the specific
we're going
person
back to
is-
we're going back to the trust issues, aren't we? Maybe transit should be like in California, where they have a board that sits apart from the politicians and makes those decisions.
Oh no, I always said that there needed to be listen,
independent
an
board.
independent
Yep.
community board, kind of like they have. Or I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have it in the police department.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have people that are making their living or whatever, or relying on contributions and everything, making the decisions. You have citizens who know what's going on. Okay, who help or actually
There's
give the help to the politicians.
There's an article right now that the county spent 2.5 years trying to come up with a better bus network, that they had an independent group looking at trying to recreate new routes for a better bus network. And lo and behold, I think it was in the Herald yesterday or the day before, they don't have enough bus drivers to do it, so they're going to pare it down. Now
that's something they can't control.
Those are the type of things that happen that eroded your public trust.
But that's also, you can't control, as you and I both know, you can't control everything in life. You can't, and you can't sit there and make plans for every deviation that life gives you. It's just not, it just doesn't happen. So the fact of the matter, either they pay more for bus drivers or they get more people. I don't know what to do about that, but that's something that you can't plan for, right?
And that's also an issue that's, in my own industry, I'm having a hard time finding
everybody
employees.
is.
Everybody is.
Everybody.
So
is.
I understand that this is just a short-term thing, but
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is, because we were talking about, and I'm gonna go on a tangent right now, but we were talking about what COVID has done to the employment population. And you got to figure right now that's over 800,000 people. 800,000 people have died of COVID. You have to figure that at least 400,000 of those people were in the work environment, right? So is it the fact that a lot of people have passed away that would have been there to fill those positions? Okay. Or the fact that you just can't find people to work for your job?
But there's also a significant population that have completely fallen out of the work market. They're just not looking for jobs right now. They just fallen out. Why?
I don't know. I don't believe that. By the way, it's very, very difficult for me to understand how these people are living. Okay. And that a significant number have fallen. I'd have to look at the stats. I think literally a lot of this has to do with a lot of people passing away.
And here's what, and I want to leave.
Although I don't know.
I want to put this out there. I do believe that we have good quality people that are trying to make good quality decisions for the future of the county. We just need more dialogue. We need to make sure that everybody's on board and not sniping at each other, and not that negativity that seems to be so relevant.
This is the problem with that. Okay, so this is the problem, and I got to tell you something. I was on vacation. I was watching some of the Supreme Court hearings with now Supreme Court Justice Jackson.
How'd you graduate from Palmetto High School? And we have
I know
and now a Supreme Court justice that also came in those hallways.
Oh no, with none of that, and
yet you were there.
I was there. Yeah, she graduated like 5 years after I did. I was going to say Bozo, but it's not Bozo.
No, it's Bezos.
But he graduated with my sister in '82, and then we have the doctor, the head of somebody who graduated, the
Surgeon General.
Yeah, Surgeon General who graduated from Palmetto Senior High School. Palmetto Senior High School, I was talking to somebody, was in the top 10 high schools in the United States until I went there. No, it was, and it's amazing. It was that ranked that high, considering there was no air conditioning. All I remember is sweating. That's all. People ask, what do you remember from high school?
And I'm going to buy you a razor, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I'll let you buy me. Actually, it's right over there. So we were talking about zoning. We're talking about other things. And I had a train of thought that I lost completely.
Again, I want to go back to the zoning and stuff. It's inevitable that there's going to be more and more pressures to build. People just love South Florida and they want to live here. It's not like, as an example, there's certain areas in Pennsylvania, certain areas in New York that are absolutely seeing a population decline. We're not, and we won't. And I just don't think it's going to change. So you need to try to figure out where you're going to put people. As simple as that.
I just got a text from somebody who says that, look at my comment regarding today's jobless claims. Lowest number in 54 years. Yeah, I mean, the question is it just people that don't want to work, which, there are people that don't want to work, or is it that there aren't people in the market? I mean, they're not.
I think it's a combination.
I mean, don't forget that the population is getting older, right?
Unemployment is like 3.2, 3.3, something like that. Is incredibly low.
Yeah, but is it the population's getting older and there's not? If not, it also is the fact, and I really believe this, that we've stopped people from coming into this country due to COVID. I mean, there's jobs out there that, and I hate to say it, that a regular everyday American or a regular everyday citizen does not want to take up, that was being handled by migrant workers coming in to do it because they wanted to get into this country. There needs to be some sort of path to citizenship, and they've never been able to tackle that. But that's for a completely different show, because that would be a great show about path to citizenship, because I have very strong feelings, and I know other people that have very strong feelings about that. But I mean, that also could decrease the ability to hire people.
And I will also tell you, and I used to say this when I was a manager, and I'm actually practicing what I'm preaching now. Architecture is as good as the person that does it. You know what I mean? I mean, look at some of the stuff that we're doing. I've done in my office, and you can compare them to other things, and you can see the difference. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but you can see the difference. So you can actually design something that be aesthetically pleasing and a nice place to live. You don't need to just make them all ugly looking boxes like your building here. No, I'm sorry.
No, this is a great building. Come on, I'm right in the heart of Coconut Grove.
No,
look at my view. My view is beautiful. And this building could come down, and I bet you I could get somebody to buy this building and build a bigger building on the site, as what's happening around us right now. What else were we going to talk about? We're going to talk about zoning. We're going to talk about the BRT.
Transit and zoning.
Oh, by the way, what is the time frame on the BRT?
No, it's under construction. They're moving.
Yeah, I know.
Along.
I see it.
I mean, the parking garage is being built on 168th Street.
It's huge.
It's going to be pretty big. Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Look, that and again, going back to the transit, I'm not trying to be an apologist for the county, but if you look at what's happened in federal guidelines, there's a lot of places that started to say, "Oh, our density's there. We'll get the 30,000 boardings." And as soon as they got the federal money, guess what they did? They downzoned. So now the federal government's kind of.
Oh yeah, but that leads to that's what's going on. And you don't want to. And you don't want me to talk about this. You don't want to talk about this, but that's what's going to happen in Palmetto Bay.
Look at South Miami. They have a parking garage. It's basically, for the most part, usually there's a lot of spaces empty in the South Miami.
Yeah.
And that's because the promise was for much more density to be around there. And after they got the money, they lowered.
So let's talk about, we can talk about South Miami for a second.
The
only thing that is really vacant in South Miami is the mall, the bakery center, or whatever they called it next, or what I just remember driving around smelling wholesome bread. But that's the only one, and they got caught almost with their pants down, because what happened was they were sure that they were going to get the approval to build residential there, right? So they start kicking out tenants, okay, and basically closing up the mall prematurely, okay, because they knew eventually they'd have to get the tenants out of there. You can't kick tenants out and say today, okay, well, you're gone because we're going to tear down half the mall. Needless to say, they got turned down. So now they have this half mall, Okay, it's half vacant. It's half vacant. Okay, and God knows what the tenants are paying rent. Okay, because there's all kinds of legalities and leases and stuff like that about half vacant malls, and everything else around it is rented. Everything. I can't think of one. And with restaurants, with new restaurants popping up, which are really good. If you've never been to Root and Bone, try that place. It's great. With restaurants all around, you got kids from UM hanging out there again, which they really hadn't done in a long time. You have offices in there, which, by the way, South Miami, if you're going to open up an office and you don't want to deal with traffic, that's the best location.
Well,
I actually heard South Miami is like the best location for any kind of business you can have.
But when they went through with Metro Rail, they promised X amount of zoning, and then all of a sudden that number after they got funded started to trip. It started. They started to chop at it, chop at it, to the point where South Miami's parking garage doesn't really ever fill up.
Which one? They have a couple of them, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay.
One
yeah.
One of them. So there's a game that has to be played there, and there's got to be some assurances that has to be given to the residents so that we don't feel that, as we have before, that we're going to be holding the bag in the future. That is
correct,
but like what happened with the half penny sales tax.
Yeah.
Like what happened when they really started look at the South.
But you can't sue. You can't sue for the half sale new sales tax, but you can sue for Burt J. Harris if somebody has rights to sit there.
Wow, that's okay. Go ahead. I know you're going, but go ahead.
Okay, nobody's gonna, because I personally would have sued for the half cent sales tax. As a matter of fact, I talked to somebody about that.
Yeah.
Okay, about it, and I got basically you can't sue, blah 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 blah. The Burt J. Harris, if you're sitting there down zoning, first you can't, in real estate, you can't give somebody rights, have them buy the property with those rights, okay, and then take those rights away. It would be like, here, I'll simplify it. I buy a house that has no pool. I'm allowed to have a pool there, right? I just have to get the money to come up with to build my pool. Municipality comes, oh, we're not allowing anybody else to build pools. You can't do that. You can't have rights that are given to you as a developer or whatever, as a general contractor or whatever, and have as a landowner and take them away, because it's devastating. The lawsuits and okay, cover your ears. The lawsuits that Palmetto Bay has right now are going to devastate our community. And literally next week we'll talk about the 3 or 4 lawsuits that have been filed against Palmetto Bay that they're not talking about out in the open. There's no transparency to the damages that can be done to Palmetto Bay at the Village Hall right now. Nobody's talking about it because it's all going on in the back room, and they know it's coming. They just don't want to tip off, okay, the residents, because it's an election year, and it's coming because I've seen them. And we'll discuss that next week. You got a couple minutes. You want to address anything else? I was told. By the way, I have somebody who helps my program. Her name is Gina. She's a producer. And after last week, I stopped the program about 10 minutes early. She called me up and yelled at me. She goes, "You got to stay on until 5, no matter what you're talking about."
Aren't you kind of used to having a lot of people yelling at you anyway? So
it's so funny.
That doesn't change much.
It's so funny. Between I've and you haven't met Gina. She's really nice, and Sadine, he's great. Okay, so I have a really good team, and I have Deidre, right? So Sadine is the only one that doesn't yell at me. I have Deidre yelling at me in one ear, and Gina yelling at me in the other. It's like I'm married again. Okay. It's crazy.
No, it was nice being on. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Palmetto Bay is what Palmetto Bay is. And
I don't want to talk to you about Palmetto Bay.
I don't want to get into.
I know. I don't want to talk to you about Palmetto Bay.
I want to do what's right for the village. I live there. I'm not going anywhere.
I'd rather talk to Gene about it, because Gene has some legal expertise.
I'm glad that we did what we did last night. I thought it was important. I thought our commissioner needs to know that there are residents that do admire her leadership qualities, and that she stands for what she says, and I think that's important. That's important. I think.
Do
And
you know what I admire
and I'm
most
very-
about her?
And I'm very glad that we have such a big turnout.
She does not sit there and spin the truth.
No,
You have a lot of people out there,
She
the
won't sugarcoat it.
politicians,
Yeah.
and she's not a politician. Yeah, she is what I do not consider a politician, because she actually tells you what's on her mind, how she feels. She waits for a little feedback. Okay. But the interesting thing is she tells you how she feels without asking you, like last election. Okay. And I'm not going to say who it is. Somebody would walk to every door, knock on the door, ask the person's opinion, okay, about something, and then say, oh, I agree completely with that. So you'd have her agreeing with different opinions, contradicting opinions. Okay. So she would get that person's vote. You don't get that with Daniela. Go ahead.
No, she actually went through last time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring this up. I'm
Yeah.
not going to put words in her mouth. But she actually went through her thought process on how she came up to their conclusion on the bridge.
Yeah.
And it was refreshing to hear
No.
that she stuck to
Yeah.
her conviction.
And she doesn't sit there and change her opinion or attitude based on the person she's talking to. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. She sits there and says, look, for the betterment of the community, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I got there. I was advised through, and hopefully she won't be pissed off at me because I'm talking about what she talked about last. She goes, I was advised not to bring this up. And I did it anyway because I thought it was the most important issue in our community between the community she serves, which is Palmetto Bay and Cutler Bay.
And again, now that I have a wider perspective, because when you get mired and when you get really focused in on one place only, that's all you do every day as a manager. And now that I'm out there and I'm working with a bunch of different cities and I'm looking at a bunch of different things, I can tell you that our problems, while they might be a little bit more than other places, are not unique. All places have problems. I mean, the Redland area right now has problems with they're trying to figure out how they can come up with the rules for the agritourism, because there's a lot of tourism places that are popping up in residential areas that are driving them crazy. There's a lot of issues out there, but I really feel comfortable with our county commissioner that a lot of these will be looked at and taken care of. And hopefully, eventually, that'll trickle down to some of these municipalities as well.
Yeah, but none of our issues are as bad as what's going on in Ukraine. And I wanted to take 3 minutes. Okay, they all pair.
Yeah.
In by what's going on in Ukraine, and you see it every day on the news. I've seen it a lot on the news. And if you're bitching about a pothole, okay, and you're complaining about a pothole, or that your mail's delivered late, or a menagerie of different, items, I want you to consider living in a country like Ukraine, okay, and having people bomb the crap out of you, okay, for no reason, okay, kill your relatives, leave the bodies on the street, rape and pillage where you live. That's a real problem. Not what we go through on a day-to-day basis in the United States.
I can't even
Okay.
imagine what those people are doing.
I've unfortunately I watched too much news, and it's really tainted my perspective on humans. And I hope everybody's praying for them over there. If I was in the U.S. government, I would have given them planes. What's interesting is, and I've said this numerous times, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a humanist. And what's interesting is that Russia had no right to invade. Okay, the Republicans used to hate Russia, and now you got this fringe group who loves Russia, which I don't understand at all. Democrats used to like Russia, now they hate Russia. It's people align themselves too much with a political party instead of aligning themselves up with what's right and what's wrong. And that's one of the biggest issues in this country. If there's an issue in this country, everybody, if you're an elected official at the Washington, D.C. level, pretty much votes along party lines. And you shouldn't be doing that. What you should be,
They almost did it with
Yeah.
the Supreme Court
Yeah.
justice.
what you should be doing, and that was an embarrassment in itself.
Mhm.
What you should be doing is voting what's best for the country in the whole and reaching across the aisle. And I can do a whole show on this, but I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get my blood's going to start boiling, because that's back in Reagan days when I was a kid. You'd see people reaching across the aisle and trying to work things out to what's best for this country. Now they don't give a shit about this country. All they care about is getting reelected and what's best for their own political party, which is absolutely going to destroy this country one day.
And again, if you go and look at last night, there was all
different people.
All different
Yep.
people there, and we all had a good time. We all.
You were
Well,
the
that's-
shortest person there, though.
Yeah, well, that's.
Anyway, it's been my hour. I can't get yelled at tomorrow by Gina because we fill the hour. You can come back anytime you want. We can talk about national politics. We can talk about BRT again.
It'll be a while, David. I'm going on vacation pretty soon.
Oh, you're going to Europe, right?
I'm going. I'll be out for a while.
No, you better get some of my work done. Anyway, thanks everybody. Stay healthy. God bless. And do me a favor. If you have one donation to make, donate to Ukraine. They really need the money. And what's going over there is really, really bad. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? Oh, yes. Jerry Johnson says, shouldn't the United Nations be involved a little bit more than they are now? Anyway, good night. Happy Thursday. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.